mean, we are now faced with a pretty interesting choice. I think it's a bit simplistic to say we've just got the two candidates from the right. I think we've got two people who are quite different. You know, in Robert Jenrick, you've got someone who I think until the Tory party conference and a speech that didn't really connect with the audience had run the best campaign, who's been the most sort of ruthless in pursuit of his goal, who his detractors would say has sort of flipped around the place politically. You know, he was a sort of centrist Cameroon type middle-ranking politician. He then was an enthusiastic supporter of Boris Johnson, and then he resigns from the Sunak government. And he's, you know, he's been, his critics would say, sort of opportunistic in pursuit of the crown. I think his supporters would say he's the only person who's spelt out some clear and real policy changes that he would make if he was the leader. And he's been pretty brutal in his assessment of what went wrong and why the Tories had such a historic loss at the election. And then in Kemi Badenoch, you've got a very interesting person who presents herself really, I mean, though she's not explicit about this, as the next sort of Margaret Thatcher, because she says the whole system is broken, the whole political consensus needs to be torn up. It's not just a question of one policy that needs to be changed or, you know, something you need to do with the European Convention of Human Rights or anything like that. You know, the whole way we run the country has gone wrong. And the politicians aren't in charge anymore, and these institutions like the Treasury and the Bank of England and the civil service are really running the show, and that's why Britain's performing badly. So she's got a much more sort of radical message, although it's at the moment quite rhetorical. It doesn't have much specific to it.
The thing about the dynamic, though, of this race, interested to know what you think about this, because, look, in the end, whoever wins starts afresh. But because of what happened at the Conservative Party conference, where Cleverly was like the winner, emerged with strongest, the best speech, and there was always a danger for him that he was rather the continuity candidate, but he was certainly the one who would perform best. And both Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch had a bad week and had missteps and sort of fell back a bit. The media dynamic between the two of them is they both slightly stumbled, and they're waiting to see whether there'll be more stumbles. And so therefore, I mean, it's, for both of them, a tougher media environment than it would be for James Cleverly in this final run-in.
Yes, I think that's right. Although both have their supporters on the right in the Conservative press. I mean, there are Conservative editors and Conservative proprietors of Conservative newspapers who are big fans of both of them. Kemi Badenoch has in the past been very much Rupert Murdoch's favourite. And I think it is worth noting, I mean, she wouldn't want me to say this, but I think it is a sort of obvious thing. It is actually remarkable that an immigrant to the United Kingdom who did not arrive here until she was in her teenage years from Nigeria as a black woman is now one of the two people who may become leader of the Conservative Party. And there's definitely a feeling you get in Conservative circles. It was often mentioned actually at the Conservative Party conference that while the left will sort of talk about diversity and about equal opportunity, it's the Conservative Party that produces 3 female prime ministers, potentially the first. Well, of course, we had the first British Asian leader of the country in Rishi Sunak, and we may have the first black woman prime minister.
But let me
or certainly black woman leader of a major political party.
But let me ask you about the route for the Conservatives now, which kind of takes us into what you think the best outcome is, which is, there are some people who think the Conservative Party should move to the right to take on reform. As you said, different versions of moving to the right with Badenoch and Jenrick, but they aren't the sort of cleverly, slightly more centre ground choice. But you're somebody who's made the argument, as many others do, that the Tories can only win from the centre ground. So this could be, on that argument, a Michael Foot or a Jeremy Corbyn period that you have to go through, an Ian Duncan Smith period you have to go through. Which of the two candidates now is most likely to get the Conservative Party either to a winning position or to a leader who can win more quickly?
So I promise you this is not me avoiding the question, but the honest answer is I think we have to see over the next few weeks. And I think at the moment, I would say, and I genuinely don't support one over the other at the moment. And I know both and I get on well with both. I would say that Robert Jenrick is in some ways the sort of safer choice because he is playing safe. He's shown he's very, this will be taken the wrong way, but I don't mean it like this, sort of malleable. He'll move to where he thinks he can win. And in an opposition leader, that's a very attractive quality. That's what Keir Starmer did with the Labour Party. He took it to the position. He said everything he felt needed to be said. We're going to come on to the budget, but he was incredibly cautious. He shifted from being a Corbyn's, shadow cabinet member to being, almost sort of Tory light at the election. And I think Jenrick will be more sort of ruthless in the pursuit. If he thinks you can win on the centre ground, he'll move the party to the centre ground. I think Kemi Badenoch, is more authentic in the sense of this is what I believe, and you can take it or leave it. And anyone who's dealt with her in private will know she's very robust, and she quite often puts people's backs up because she tells people what she thinks. But that's also a very attractive quality. And so if you think the Tory party needs to take some real risks, and if you really do believe the country is broken and it does, at the moment, nothing seems to be improving whoever's in charge, then you'd be more inclined to go for her kind of radical medicine. Whereas if you think, actually, the Labour Party is screwing up, let's play it safe, let's kind of just try and put ourselves in a position where the Tory party is a least offensive opposition. That's probably Jenrick. But I don't know. That's my kind of, I haven't heard them for the next few weeks. So I will test that assumption against what they say over the next coming period.
The counter argument is if you think that neither of these two could win and you have to go through one of them to then get onto the leader who can win from the centre ground, whoever that is, then the counter argument is that Kemi Badenoch kind of burns and falls more quickly, and the very malleability of Robert Jenrick just makes this whole process more elongated.